Each Gummies is full of vitamin D. Find out your local store or pharmacy.
Booming business and bones, demand for real human skeletons surges in India. In India, a particular type of business has developed, the sale of human remains. The sale of human remains has been rising due to India's rise in medical colleges and the crucial subject of anatomy. In Kolkata, Indian human bones were once plentiful and cheap on the not-so-black market, but due to rising prices, students have been driven to source a skeleton already in circulation. The price of a new skeleton is between 15,000 rupees and 35,000 rupees in Kolkata.
This is between 226 and 527 US dollars. A used skeleton by medical students can be for 2,800 rupees instead. This in US dollars is $42. It's very important for medical students to observe, touch, and commit to memory a skeleton's grooves, ridges, and crests. Most students make do with a set of bones that falls short of the 206 bones that support a human body.
Other students resort to sharing femurs and skulls in a classroom relay. In desperation, they also share bones in student hostels. Rising prices for human skeletons stem from the crowd of politicians and entrepreneurs who have rushed to establish lucrative private medical colleges. They set fees especially high for non-resident Indian students. The supply of human bones is further strained by the rise of animation industry in India. Usually, animation schools press their students to obtain a skeleton to hone their drawing technique. When asked, workers who were tasked with collecting skeletons from local graveyards said that the job can be a hit or miss. A section of a cemetery in India is reserved for burying unclaimed bodies such as those retrieved from public hospitals or nearby rivers. Every 6 months, graveyard workers dig up that section to make room for fresh corpses. They place the old bones on the side.
A recent haul in Mysore Cemetery of 20 skeletons was enough for 40 students to share. The requirement to win a skeleton springs from an oral tradition, not a written rule. The Medical Council of India only requires individual medical colleges to maintain a museum with plenty of human skeletons. During the 19th century India, the study of the anatomy was the most popular subject to study within colleges the British had set up. That anatomy was studied at colleges in Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. When professors couldn't access human bones, they relied on passport models. When these weren't good enough to study from, mass grave digging became a popular way for medical colleges to get the skeletons they needed.
Skeletons from graves could provide medical museums around the world with skeletons. However, in 1985, India passed a law to ban the export of human remains, which quickly stopped that trade. India also has a ban on the domestic trade of any kind of human remain. However, the Indian government allows medical colleges a special license to acquire human bones for study. When investigators interviewed gravediggers in India about their job, they found that most of the workers described the profession as hard.
To be more modern, plastic replicas, three-dimensional digital printing, and animation are replacing actual skeletons to be easier for medical students to access. However, some anatomy professors warn that reliance on replica skeletons could lead to serious medical consequences because the replicas lack the ridges and other rough details of real bones.
Today we have a special guest. He's an expert in the muscular system. Mr. Rico, can you tell us about the muscular system?
Thank you for the introduction. Well, the muscular system is responsible for the movement of the body. We have about 708 muscles in the body, and that only makes up half of our body weight.
Wow, over 700? What's the most common type of injury that happens in the body, especially among young athletes?
The most common for both athletes and non-athletes are sprains and bruises, especially around the ankles, knees, and wrists. When you get a sprained ankle, knee, etc., you should rest, apply ice, elevate the sprain if possible, or compress it. And when you're elevating, make sure it's above your heart.
Thank you for coming here and telling us about the muscular system.
No problem. Thank you for having me. In other news, restoring movement to paralyzed patients with a synthetic nervous system. When a person becomes paralyzed, the reality of walking or using that part of their body again isn't reality anymore. But the dream of being able to walk again may be made a reality by a team of researchers at Ohio State University. What they have done is performed a neural bypass that reconnects a patient's mental commands for movement to responsive muscles in their limbs, creating somewhat of a synthetic nervous system. The pioneer patient for this surgery is Ian Burkhart. Ian is now 24 years old, but was left with quadriplegia after a diving accident almost 6 years ago. Ian can now move his hand thanks to this.
The neural bypass works using a microelectrode array implanted in Burkhart's brain. The implant picks up activity in a specific area of his left motor cortex, which researchers had analyzed prior to placing the implant. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging (MRI), which tracks brain activity based on blood flow, the researchers pinpointed the hand-controlling area of Burkhart's brain while he repeatedly thought about moving his hand.
To get it to work, Burkhart attended 3 weekly sessions for 15 months. He mastered controlling his thoughts and could pull off 6 hand and wrist movements, including the ability to move individual fingers. While the study is a milestone, researchers need to continue working on the system to fine-tune it, make it adaptable to other types of paralysis patients, and perhaps more importantly, make it work outside of a clinical setting.